Beneath the streets of Rome, there are tunnels that most people will never see. Not the famous ones. Not the ones in the guidebooks, the ones that haven't been found yet. Every year, archaeologists working beneath Rome discover new passages, new rooms, new chambers filled with the remains of people who have been down there for nearly 2,000 years. The last major discovery was in 2021. They are still finding them. And every time they open a new chamber, the people inside have been waiting in the dark since the 1st century after the death of Jesus Christ. The story of the Roman catacombs begins with persecution. In the first 3 centuries after Christ, being a Christian in Rome was dangerous. The Roman Empire did not tolerate religions that refused to worship the emperor as a god. Christians refused, and they paid for it. They were arrested, imprisoned, executed in public spectacles that the Romans called entertainment, thrown to lions, set on fire to light Nero's garden parties. The historian Tacitus, who was no friend of Christians, wrote that Nero had them covered in animal skins and torn apart by dogs, that he had them crucified, that he had them burned as torches to illuminate his gardens at night. This was not occasional persecution. This was systematic, organized, sustained across generations. And yet the faith survived. They needed somewhere safe to gather, somewhere to bury their dead, somewhere the empire could not easily reach them. So they went underground. Beginning in the 2nd century, Christian communities began digging tunnels beneath the city. Not secretly, Roman law actually protected burial sites from desecration. The catacombs were, technically, legal, but they were also invisible. The Romans above did not know what was happening beneath their feet. The Christians buried their dead in these tunnels. They gathered to pray beside the tombs. They celebrated the Eucharist in underground chambers, while the empire that wanted to destroy them walked on the streets above. And they kept digging. For 3 centuries, they dug. The scale of what they built is almost impossible to comprehend. The catacombs beneath Rome extend for over 300 kilometers of tunnels. Some estimates say 500 kilometers. No one knows the exact number, because not all of them have been mapped yet. They were dug on multiple levels. Some go down 4 or 5 stories beneath the surface. The deepest chambers are over 15 meters underground. Between 5 and 7 million people are buried down there. 5 to 7 million in tunnels that were dug by hand, with simple iron tools, by people who were burying their dead while hiding from an empire that wanted to kill them. The work was done mostly at night, or in the early hours before dawn, when the streets above were quiet and the risk of discovery was lower. They worked by lamplight, in narrow passages barely wide enough for one person, digging through the soft volcanic rock called tufa that lies beneath Rome, shaping niches into the walls, carrying the excavated earth back to the surface in baskets. They did this for 300 years. Think about what it meant to carry the body of someone you loved down into those tunnels, to lay them in a niche cut from the rock, to seal the niche with a tile or a stone, to scratch a name into the surface, a symbol of the fish, the secret sign of the early Christians, a prayer. And then to walk back up into the sunlight of Rome, knowing that the empire above had no idea what was happening below. This is where the story becomes stranger. Among the millions buried in the catacombs, there are the saints. The catacombs of San Callisto hold the tombs of 9 popes from the 3rd century. The catacombs of San Sebastiano hold what many Christians believe was the temporary resting place of the bodies of St. Peter and St. Paul themselves. For a period in the 3rd century, when persecution was at its most intense, the bodies of the 2 founders of the Roman Church were moved to the catacombs for protection. Peter, Paul, hidden underground, in tunnels beneath the city where they had been killed. the church that would eventually become the most powerful institution in Western history, began as a group of people hiding the bodies of their leaders in the dark beneath a hostile empire. Whether this is a story of faith surviving against impossible odds, or a story of how power begins in hiding and vulnerability, depends on how you read what came next, because what came next is something the catacombs themselves did not predict. In 313 AD, the Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan. Christianity became legal, then favored. Then, within decades, the official religion of the Roman Empire. The catacombs were no longer necessary. Christians could bury their dead in the open. They could build churches above the ground. They could worship without hiding. The catacombs were gradually abandoned. For centuries, they were forgotten. The entrances collapsed. The tunnels filled with earth. The city above grew and changed and had no memory of what lay beneath it. And then, in 1578, a worker digging near the Via Salaria broke through into a chamber. He found tunnels stretching in every direction, walls covered in frescoes, paintings of Christ, of the apostles, of biblical scenes still vivid after 15 centuries underground, and the tombs, thousands of them, tens of thousands. Rome had forgotten its dead, and its dead had been waiting patiently in the dark for someone to remember. The rediscovery of the catacombs changed how the Catholic Church understood its own history. Here was physical evidence of the first Christians, of the persecution, of the faith that had survived underground while the empire tried to destroy it. The church began to excavate, to map, to restore. And the excavations have never stopped, because the catacombs have never been fully explored. New passages are still being found. In 2021, archaeologists working beneath a vineyard on the outskirts of Rome broke through into a previously unknown section of the catacombs of San Callisto. The chamber they found had been sealed for over 1,500 years. Inside were frescoes, tombs, the remains of Christians who had been buried there in the 3rd century and had not been seen by human eyes since the Yazai fall of the Roman Empire. They had been down there, waiting, while the entire history of Western civilization unfolded above them. The known catacombs are open to visitors. You can walk through them, see the niches where the bodies once lay, read the inscriptions, the names, the ages, the symbols of faith that the early Christians scratched into the rock. Some of the inscriptions are heartbreaking in their simplicity. A child's name, an age, the word innocence, innocent, a husband's message to his wife, a mother's message to her child. One inscription reads, "She lived sweetly." 3 words. For an entire life. Another reads, "In peace," written beside the name of a man who had probably not known much peace while he was alive, who had worshipped in secret, who had buried his dead in the dark, who had spent his life waiting to be found. People who died in hiding, in the dark, beneath an empire that wanted them gone, and who still found a way to say, "I was here. I love someone. I will not be forgotten." The church that began in these tunnels now has over 1 billion members. The empire that tried to destroy it is gone. And beneath Rome, in tunnels that are still being discovered, the first Christians are still down there. Their bones still line the walls of these tunnels. Still waiting, still being found. And every time a new chamber is opened, every time a sealed door is broken through, and the Yaviani light enters for the first time in 15 centuries, the people inside have been in the dark. Since the world that buried them ended. They kept the faith in the tunnels. And the tunnels kept them.